about that. Please.
Is there any like correlation between like lean startup and like lean manufacturing, or it just like has the same like name?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Like, is there any correlation between like lean startup or lean launchpad and like lean manufacturing?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. It's all related.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay, customer discovery. I'm going to let Steve Blank talk to you a little bit about this.
For 21 years, I did 8 startups in a variety of industries. 2 semiconductor companies, enterprise software, video games, consumer electronics, military intelligence, and it was the most exciting thing I could imagine spending my life doing. But now for the last 14 years, I've been an educator. I've been teaching entrepreneurs how to think a different way about startups and how to build their companies in a very efficient way. Hi, I'm Steve Blank. I'm a retired serial entrepreneur. In this series, we're going to talk about 2 big ideas. How are startups different from large companies? And the second thing is something called the lean startup. And inside the lean startup, we're going to talk about the customer development process. We're going to talk about how to build a minimum viable product, how to build prototypes, and then we're going to talk about customer acquisition. How do you actually get out in the building, talk to customers, and then get them to use or buy your product?
Okay, well. Okay, this is a more detailed, the business model design and the lean method.
Turns out that a lean startup consists of 3 components. 1 is business model design, 2 is customer development, and 3 is agile engineering. And these 3 components help startups become incredibly efficient, reducing the amount of time to get the first product and reducing the amount of cash necessary to build that product. So in a lean startup, we really know something quite different than a large company. In a lean startup, we know that you just don't execute per plan. You're actually going to be learning and discovering from customers outside your office. We kind of know that there are no facts inside your building, so you're going to get the heck outside. We also know that you're not smarter than the collective intelligence of your potential customers. So what we're going to do is put together a process that allows you to rapidly learn by getting out of the building and testing some of your key ideas and key features of the product as quickly and as rapidly as we can. And what you're going to find is a good number of your initial hypotheses are just simply wrong. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to start with writing down all the hypotheses. And the common framework we use is Alexander Osterwalder's business model canvas. This 9-box diagram puts all the hypotheses about your business. Who are the customers? What are you building for them? What's the channel? How are you going to reach them? How are you going to make money? And puts them in a single page. So it's going to provide a framework and then a scorecard for us to see how we're doing. But unlike just doing strategy in a large company, you're going to take these hypotheses and go outside the building and actually test them. Not test them randomly, but test them with a formal process called customer development. What we're going to do is design experiments, run the experiments outside the building, get the data, and look for insights. And in fact, the way we're going to actually get insights is by showing customers either PowerPoint, wireframes, clay models, prototypes, at any stage we can to actually gather as much information as we can about their feedback. And one of the things we're going to find out is that there are 2 unique things we do in a lean startup. One is when our hypotheses turn out to be incorrect, Instead of firing people, we actually get to change those hypotheses. And these are called pivots. A pivot is defined as a substantive change to one or more of the business model canvas components. If it's a minor change, we call it an iteration. And so in a normal company or an old-fashioned startup, we'd fire the VP of sales if their assumptions were wrong. Here what we're doing is firing the plan. Not only does this work for startups, it actually works for large companies as well. We work for General Electric, one of the smartest big companies in the world. And GE was about to commercialize some of their high-temperature sulfur battery technology. And they wanted to offer these batteries to other companies for industrial applications. And they had done a great market research report and had pages of here's where the product should go. And the CEO was going to give the general manager, Prescott Logan, $100 million to just go build the factory and go execute, hire the staff and whatever. We have the technology and here's the report. But Prescott luckily said, you know, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like an existing business. This feels like a startup. And we got to check our hypotheses. And so Prescott Logan and his customer development team flew around to almost every continent, in fact, every continent in the world, including Antarctica, and discovered that the requirements actually differed by industry segments. Substantially enough is that if they would have had a standard factory making standard product, they would have sold none of them. Because different customers required different packaging, different cooling, different connectors, and none of this was visible from inside the building. After 18 months, they figured out who the customers were, what they wanted, and then built the factory. And now, a couple of years later, they have backlogs for the next 3 years. And so what we now know is that no business plan survives first contact with customers. That means we wouldn't know whether we were right or wrong until after we shipped the product and customers gave us feedback. And by then, we've burned lots of time, lots of money, and potentially are out of business. But imagine if you had a process that allowed you to quickly iterate and incrementally build the product a piece at a time, for each increment, learning and discovering whether you were on the right track. What's the right track? Do you have the right customers for the right features, which we call product market fit? Do you have the right distribution channel? Do you have the right revenue model, right pricing, partners? Do you understand your costs? We have a process now to test each one of these incrementally, cheaply, and quickly. And that's what the whole lean startup model is about.
That's where I want to be. Okay, so why this fast growth? What's making the world move so much faster than it used to? And it kind of goes back to Moore's Law. He was a founder of Intel, a very large, very successful electronics chip maker. And his law said, basically, the number of transistors and resistors on a 1-inch square chip doubles every 18 months. They print these things now. They're not hand assembled. They're way too small for that. They're printed. And so anyway, you can see that it's a remarkably steady line, but it's all, pretend like you can still see that. But it's also going upward, so the rate of growth is increasing. It's getting faster. So the improving technology has it's double-sided. Number one, the transactions per second, speed is increasing, and the cost per chip is rapidly decreasing. Think about the new methods where they print these things instead of meticulously soldering and doing all that stuff. You can see what impact that would have on costs. So the impact of the improvements in speed, which is a good thing, times the reduction in cost, which is a good thing, you multiply those two numbers together, and you get an X-fold improvement during whatever time period you're studying in this. So what do you guess the value of X would be for the 40-year period between 1972 and 2012? So do you have any thoughts at all? 100,000, okay. 60,000, okay. Anybody else? See, that was where I was coming from originally. And so I do this in class, and the engineers in class, well, and the IT people, we have a lot of CIT people, they pull out their calculators and they start madly calculating. And so then as they did that, they began raising the numbers. And the largest answer I got in my two ENTR 310 classes was 10 billion. That's kind of mind-boggling, but yet it's too low. It's really 100 billion. So you think of anything that is 100 billion times better over a 40-year period, I mean, that is showing the kinetic energy that's available in this, what's going on. So that's how you kind of explain all this. There's a book that I recommend a lot to people. It's called Bold, and it talks about exponential companies, and it has the chart that shows this calculation, where it came from. One of the very interesting things in thinking about what's an exponential company, the example of Kodak was brought up. As some of you may know, the digital camera was invented by Kodak, but you never saw one with Kodak's name on it in the early days, because the board of directors said, what? The quality of this thing is atrocious. We're in the paper and ink business, which this would do away with. Don't you ever talk about this again. So they sat on it. Well, along came, other people that were not sitting, and they developed what we have today. And what became so interesting about this is that Kodak then tried to catch up when they realized that they'd missed the train, and they couldn't. And so, I think it was 2012, Kodak, that had 300 plus thousand employees, was now down to something like 37,000, and they filed for bankruptcy. That was the very same year that Facebook bought, who was it? Say it again? Yeah, Instagram. You know how many employees Instagram had at the time that they were paid $1 billion for their company? They had 13. Now that is an exponential company. When you digitalize stuff, you can cram an awful lot of those digits in a very small space, and you can have a lot of growth. So, that's what people are striving for now. So the point being that with technology so powerful, anybody who can show people how to put it to work quicker is going to get quickly adopted, and that's what we've seen happen here. See how we're doing. Okay, this is the parting shot. This is Steve Jobs.
When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and you're Your life is just to live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. That's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it, you can influence it, you can build your own things that other people can use. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again.
And that's it.
You need new glasses, so why not have them delivered to your doorstep?
I've learned you should never
You can choose from thousands of styles, including brands like Ray-Ban,
leave any of these things running.
See how the frames look on your face, and get your new pair online, starting at $48, including prescription lenses. Plus, get free shipping and returns. At GlassesUSA.com, you'll always find the perfect pair at affordable prices.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, anybody have any comments or any questions or anything you'd like to dispute? Please.
I can't help but wonder, based off the beginning of your talk, as you are now, are you waiting for your retirement right now? Like, I know you hated that when you were younger.
No, I really have no plans to retire. It just wouldn't fit. It's too much fun doing what I'm doing. One of the things that as you get older, and if you plan your life properly, you can make a lot of choices. And all the things that I'm doing, I love. And probably what I get the most enjoyment out of is coming up to Purdue twice a week. I live in Carmel, so I drag myself up here. Well, this week it'll be 3 times because we have class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But it's just so much fun working with students because you can see that this kind of stuff really makes an impression on them. And so I end up, since the beginning of this year, I have probably written about 17 recommendation letters for past students. And I put effort into it. They're not just cranked off. I really do research. I have the information, and it's just a labor of love. It really is. So, good question. Anything else?
I just have a question about, it's like, kind of somebody who wants to start a company or if they don't really have like a fully fledged idea, when would it be time to like jump ship from like whatever you're currently doing and pursue your idea full time? Like when would that step take place in your opinion?
That's probably different for each person, but I think kind of trust your gut. The more experience you get, the more wisdom you'll have. And there will come a time when I think you can reliably say, my gut is telling me it's time to make a change. And then, do it intelligently. Know what if it doesn't work, fail fast. If it doesn't work, what do you do then? Have a plan laid out so you don't go into shock. But I mean, when I jumped ship from General Motors, the group that we put together had no money. I mean, no money to speak of. And we were all about the same age, which was mid-30s. And what really got us, we had we knew you eat what you kill in that environment. And so we all did things to bring money into the company until we actually had enough to begin to develop software. And so we began doing that, and then it just grew from there. But there was never a time that I ever seriously doubted that this company would make it. In many cases we were lucky, but I think we were lucky because we made very smart decisions on technology. So, And you know, when we borrowed money from the bank, in today's dollars that would be $700,000, they wanted personal guarantees from my partner and myself, signed by our wives in addition, because the only assets we had were houses, and the wives' names were on the, you know, mortgage of the house, not the mortgage, the deed to the house. So it's an interesting conversation to have when you explain to your wife that, well, yeah, they could come and take the house away, but don't worry about that. And luckily, my wife didn't. She was, now like I say, later on I wished I'd listened to her. So there's always an element of risk, but most entrepreneurs are not big risk takers. They're smart risk takers. And that's, you know, part of the learning how to kind of protect yourself and at the same time not cower taking a paycheck every month. So that's not a good answer. I'm not sure there is a good answer. It's going to be so individual. But you know, one thing I think you want to be very careful about, don't end up making decisions by negotiating with yourself. You really need to have a group of people around you who you trust, and you need to get them involved in what you're doing because you may be on the wrong track. But if you're in love with an idea, you're not going to be the one to tell yourself that it's a bad idea. But if you've got the right group of people advising you, they will. And if you get enough people telling you this isn't going to work and here's why, you're probably going to want to listen to them. Anything else? Okay, well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Good luck to all of you. Good luck to EPICS.